This is, okay, so background really quick. So the Supreme Court just ruled kind of in favor of Trump on the immunity issue that he tried to seek against the prosecutor, and actually Trump won that. And this is what I'm going to say about why he won that. Okay. Now, I'm going to skip a lot of context because I want to just really get into this. So if you are trying to learn about the law or anything like that, go do that. I'm not trying to learn about the law. I think I just think I know what logic is. So I'm just going to quote from the syllabus really quick. This is the Supreme Court. Their written response. They say the government, talking about the prosecutor, does not dispute the indictment's allegations regarding the Justice Department involve Trump's use of official power. So, in other words, the government didn't say that Trump was doing something outside of official capacity when he was threatening to fire his appointee and all because he was trying to get them to investigate and change things for the election. Anyway, so the Supreme Court says that the government didn't dispute that those were official powers. Okay, this is a very, very important reality that occurred here because it shows something about the spirit of party politics in this country, not just how divisive they are, but how dangerous they actually are. And what you just got today was the example of the greatest danger to democracy that America faces, which is itself. Not it's your own emotional psychosis. And I don't even care what you think about those words, because you just need to be a little more stoic in order to understand some things that I'm saying, even though my emotions are fucking psychotic. Anyway, now it says the allegations, in fact, plainly implicate Trump's, quote, conclusive and preclusive authority, unquote. So the prosecutor was actually trying to challenge the Constitution through their case against Trump. The executive branch has, quote, exclusive authority and absolute discretion, unquote, to decide which crimes to investigate and prosecute, including with respect to allegations of election crime. That might sound terrifying. It actually kind of should. Should definitely read into that responsibly. But, and the president's, quote, management of the executive branch, unquote, requires him to have, quote, unrestricted power to remove the most important of his subordinates, unquote, such as the attorney general, quote, in their most important duties, unquote. The indictment's allegations that the requested investigations were shams or proposed for an improper purpose do not divest the president of exclusive authority over the investigative and prosecutorial functions of the U.S. Justice Department and its officials, because the president cannot be prosecuted for conduct within his exclusive constitutional authority. Trump is absolutely immune from prosecution for the alleged conduct involving his discussions with the Justice Department officials. So I'm going to say that in the way that I want to say it, not layman's terms. It's very general. I'm going to speak the way I want to speak. I think that's a little bit more responsible than trying to pretend that I'm special in some way. But there's a serious implication here that the prosecutor kind of threw a Hail Mary trying to challenge the institution of the presidency itself over pretty much not liking what Trump did. Now, that might sound simplistic, but I'm not wanting to go deep into the political crap of this. Because let's say the prosecutor had challenged the claim on preclusive and conclusive authorities and won. What would have happened? Well, what would have happened is the president would have had to become afraid of criminal prosecution for things that were official acts. An official act is something where a president, within his already determined authority by the law, says that they can do this or that. Like, hey, you know, my Justice Department appointee isn't helping me break the law. I'm going to fire him. Okay, that's fine. You're breaking the law. What you're doing is breaking the law. Okay, whatever. I'm being lazy with my words. I don't care about this part. But if you fire one of your own officials, that's an official act. And it doesn't really matter how and why you do that under the law right now. What would have happened if the prosecutor had won this, it basically would have turned the United States into a communist state, because all of a sudden the executive would have been completely disempowered and subject to fear of prosecution for an official act. Now, remember, what I'm saying about what an official act constitutes is anything that is already within the power and authority invested in the executive branch. Okay, so if the president, it doesn't matter what the reason is for why the president acts in an official capacity. It doesn't matter how distasteful it is. You know, the president, the whole point of the executive branch is that it needs to be a pivot point in the balance of powers, that the president can act swiftly and with the maximum amount of individual elected authority. This is not an anti-democratic concept. This is the most democratic concept we have in the United States, and it's sacred, and it should absolutely be protected by any means necessary, you know? And this prosecutor attempted to destroy it, actually, because he didn't like Trump. That's very political and myopic. Also, it demonstrates absolutely no understanding of the fundamental founding of the United States. It's really, really scary to think that somebody in the government thinks that way. Isn't it? Aren't we afraid that our government does not actually take itself very seriously? Fortunately, the systemic, or the structure rather, of the system we have developed, the constitutional nature of our United States, makes it to where we can kind of defend ourselves, even on accident, which is the most important part of this, like what just happened, to keep that from actually occurring. Because if he had actually won what he did, right, all of a sudden, prosecutors would have been able to leak into this. And it's not even that abstract to say this. It's concretely true. They would have leaked into executive power themselves. That's not legitimate in any sense. No, it could not be morally right in any situation. It could never be okay. And the Democrats, sorry, but get a little bit political to say the word Democrat because we don't appreciate nuance in the United States. Can't have a nuanced position on anything. Probably more liberal than most of you. But the Democrats attempted to destroy a piece of our country because they were mad at Trump. That's like, say you were attacked at some point, right? And you're like, we're going to go get these guys. And then you just randomly fire at a totally different country. It's in the ballpark of the same kind of thing. It's very analogous to a type of thinking that a very reasonable and rational group of people like liberals should be able to see very clearly. But liberals are not dispassionate in general. They are just as human as conservatives. They just have a different way that manifests. And I don't think everything about this ruling is great. But I do want to point out that it is definitely nowhere near as bad as anybody seems to actually think it is. I would just say, read the actual opinion. It's definitely terrifying, actually, because now that we've gotten past I think that's a silver lining in all of this. But remember, we got past that part. Last thing. Whenever the president and vice president discuss their official responsibilities, they engage in official conduct. Now, this is a really terribly lazy language here for the law. That establishes something. When the Supreme Court speaks, it becomes established. And that's a very, very scary thought, right? Because this is almost weaselly language. Whenever the president and vice president discuss their official responsibilities, they engage in official conduct. Presiding over January 6th certification proceeding at which members of Congress count the electoral votes is a constitutional and statutory duty of the vice president. Now that part's just straight up. That's definitive. The first one is general in a scary way. The indictments, allegations that Trump attempted to pressure the vice president to take particular acts in connection with his role at the certification proceeding thus involve official conduct. Wow. And Trump is at least presumptively immune from prosecution for such conduct. That I think is true. But this is what happens when two extreme positions find a middle that was never tenable because both of them were nuts.